Hey everyone, it's GosuDad, and welcome back to my final game in Season 5, playing as Terran against a Gold League Protoss player named Oblivion. Now Oblivion has been playing about a month of random race up until this point, and said he was switching to Protoss. And so here we are, Terran versus Protoss on the map Shakuras Plateau, a 4-player map. And we are in the close by air positions, as we'll just scan across the map and you can see that. So the idea is I'm just going to walk through this game and see what we can learn from these two different strategies. My opponent did do an expansion type of build. You can see he's building his gateway up at the front, whereas I was going for essentially a one-base build, the bring your own Banshee build that I've played several times this season, which is particularly friendly for timing attacks sometime in the, I don't know, in the between 10 and 20 minutes, something like that. So, and that's mainly been driven by external timings. In this case I was playing very late in the evening, as you'll remember from my live cast. Now my opponent Oblivion going for a quick scout to see if I'm in the close by air position. And we can see that he is able to scout that out very quickly and see what's inside the base. Now, doing a bunch of chatter here for this final game, and I'm going ahead and putting down a refinery. Now, once he sees that, there's a fairly good chance that he can guess that I'll be going for some kind of 1-1-1 build. Which typically brings, I think usually it brings a Raven instead of a Banshee, with some infantry and a tank, I think a tank. But the idea is that the Raven with its point defense drone can shut down the Protoss stalkers and provide a huge advantage for a Terran player moving for a one base attack into a Protoss base. Now you see Oblivion has his assimilator down, so it looks like he's going to be going for some kind of one gate expand, so this gateway coming up pretty quickly. Now the Protoss, with his ability to chrono boost out probes, which I don't think he's necessarily used any chrono boost at this point, so he is up ahead on supply. I'm not sure what's slowing me down on my side. We've got a little bit of micromanagement going on with the probe versus SCV battle, going for double gas on my side, so going for a pretty tech heavy build. Now that's going to mean that I will be sacrificing the sheer number of offensive units in exchange for some sort of technology, which in my case would be the tank and the Banshee at the starport. So my opponent going for a cyber core, double pylon at the front, and he has not built any offensive units yet, and going for a double gas. So looks like we are both going for some kind of tech heavy build at the beginning. Double gas is more than enough for any kind of 4-gate type of build, and 3 harvesters on each gas there. So he is chrono boosting out the warp gate research. He has not built any offensive units yet at all. So if we check out the army supply tab, we can see that my army supply is a little bit higher than his. Got a zealot on the way, now going up to 3 gates, still has not expanded. And this may be just an indication of the slowness of my play here. I am a Bronze League player in the upper quarter of my division, and he is in the upper, what, 30% of his division, I think. I think he was gold 36. Going down for a robotics facility, so this is, it's like 3-gate robo. So the robotics facility able to create the immortals, which are great for taking out buildings, and marauders, which are the pretty strong bane for the stalker play coming out from the Protoss players. Now, surprising to him, I will be going for a bunch of marauders, as I decided to do a slight change on that bring your own Banshee build to using marauders instead of tanks. So this factory's main role will be making tech labs for the barracks and the starport. My opponent, still staying on one base, has a single sentry to try to blockade this ramp. Now a single force field can blockade this ramp either here or I think possibly here, but in his case he's not getting any pressure coming from myself. Now he is banking a lot of minerals, you can see up here, 400 minerals and 200 gas, so he should be able to just warp in a couple of units immediately. And he does have an observer coming out, so he'll be able to see what's going on in my base. I do have some minuscule map control with these two Marines watching over these Zelnaga towers, which is pretty crucial for me seeing when he moves out. So he's moving out with a pretty small force here just to guard this this front door. Being a Gold League player, I'm suspecting he's going to be expanding soon, but he does have enough gates plus this robotics facility chrono boosting out this immortal. He'll be able to hold off any early aggression I have. Now if he's able to expand, which as you can see it looks like he's going to try to do. If he's able to expand, and I haven't expanded yet, his observer will be able to see how far along my build is going. Then he will be at a significant macro advantage between my mules and his chrono boosting ability. Our macro is fairly similar. Now, I've been waiting to see when he comes out with that, just comparing the incomes here, because of my mules. And let's check out the worker supply. I do have more workers than he does. So at this point I am ahead in the supply game, in the macro game, but he is putting down a nexus here. So now this is quite an investment at this point. If I attack during this time before his nexus finishes and he's able to take advantage of the economic benefit of it, you can see in the army tab my army supply is higher than his. Now I think at this point I'm not sure that the composition necessarily does any good. Now one of the things that he's done here, which is very important, is he's created these sentries fairly early in the game, and he's trying to get their energy high enough, because if their energy is high enough they can blockade this ramp with a couple of force fields and give himself time to warp in units and give himself time to take advantage of his second base. Now I'm only on 3 barracks. That factory is just sent for visibility here. 3 barracks and 1 starport, and he can tell that the Banshees are being built. He can tell that this tech lab is researching something. There's a good chance that that is Cloak, which really is not all that important on his side, because he can just make observers and negate that Cloak ability. Now he's got the Forge down here. Looks like it's not researching anything, and a forward photon cannon, and the nexus is finishing. You can tell that I'm building a whole bunch of things back in my base, and my time is running out. I'm up to the 10-minute mark, so a push at this point probably will not break this wall, and at that point he will be far ahead in the economic game compared to myself. Although if you look at the worker supplies, he's starting to catch up, so that's pretty good on his side. My army supply is significantly higher than his at this point though, and I think some of that is the Protoss ability to instantly warp in units from these warp gates. He's just kind of waiting on that, as well as he has invested quite a bit into this nexus. He's already starting to have double probes on there. I'm interested to see what kind of energy he has on his nexus. So he's been doing pretty well. So he's going to catch up fairly quickly off of both nexus. Off of that, now I have placed down one of these sensor towers, which you can see on the minimap is very important. I'll be able to see when units come in, except for this observer, because he's invisible due to that cloak, and he has observer here also as well to catch any Banshees coming in from that angle. So he's doing pretty well. I think he's got a couple of photon cannons in the back of his mineral line. Again, that's Banshee protection. So he's already set up defensively to protect against those Banshees, and these sentries have quite a bit of energy, so he should be able to hold that up. So at this point, unless I make some kind of groundbreaking attack into the base, he's just going to win in the long run, because he has so much economy. If we check open the supply tab, you can see that, the income tab, you can see that his minerals are higher. They should be getting higher as we speak if he's indeed building probes, but it looks like he's not. Looks like he's saving up. So this could be a moment. Brief in time, you can see my supply is 80 to 68, 54 army supply to 32. So that's pretty amazing. Going to be seeing this group move out. Now, I saw these guys move out, kill this Marine, and then move to the other one, which is an excellent move on his part, because what this does, and he actually killed my Marine before I could see what was going on, the exact composition of this group. I'm not sure exactly where this group is at this point. If we check to my vision, all I can see is that he's taken over the Zelnaga towers. Now, the sensor tower does give me a lot of range. I can see, for example, if he's coming down across the southern edge, or if he's making a move towards this entrance ramp, but that's all I can see. So if we look back to the map, all he did was clear out those 2 Zelnaga towers. He's got excellent scouting ability with these observers, and he's got 1 observer coming up, and looks like he's just got it routed to go around to the different bases. Check to see that if I've expanded to a 3rd here, and my group moving out. Now, one thing to note here, this is a pretty large group. I didn't think I realized quite how large this group was. There are, wow, 13 Marauders and 15 Marines, 3 Banshees, 1 medevac, and this Raven. Now, my original idea for this Raven was that it would be used primarily as a detector to scout for Dark Templar. I have seen Dark Templar being used in engagements and causing quite a bit of trouble, but at this point, my army supply is still higher than his, almost 50% larger than his. I'm not sure. He does have some stuff building on the way, an Immortal just popping out now. So he's got quite a few Immortals, but my group is fairly mixed between Marines and Marauders, and these Banshees should be able to put a lot of offensive power onto these Immortals as well. So I think at this point I do have a stronger army, and this next moment will be a question of how we are able to manage these armies. Now, don't forget, he has been... all of these sentries basically have full energy, so they can just blockade this ramp, you know, pretty much forever. So here comes the big engagement. I'm moving in here. I see his army briefly, and then I back off a little bit right there. The Raven comes out to put down his point defense drone, which doesn't do much good. The only thing that the point defense drone does in this particular case is to negate these 4 stalkers, but there's hardly any stalkers there, so that's not that big of a deal. Now, just a quick pause. He does have a Stargate up, and I don't see... oh, he has 2 Stargates. Wow. I don't see any Void Rays out quite yet, so that'll be interesting to see when those come out, because they do play a vital role. Now, if we put up the hit point tab, we can see exactly what happens here. So let's power up. So he's pushing me back with these force fields, because I think he can tell that I have a very powerful army at this point. The other advantage for him, of course, is that his units that have had their shields damaged, those shields will replenish over time. So the more that he can delay me from coming in and doing a particular single attack on his units will regain their shields, and will have an advantage in that way. The other thing is that I only have 1 medevac, so my units will not be able to heal remotely as well as his will. That and this point defense drone is negating the stalkers, so it's a good idea to move back. So he's trying to move back into a more advantageous position. Here we come in again, and here's that defensive cannon, and excellent force fields keeping me at the bottom of the ramp. So at this point nothing can go forward. All I have that I can attack up into the ramp are these Banshees, and they're getting damaged at a pretty good rate. So a little bit of back and forth between us. So you can see how powerful this army is of Marines and Marauders and Banshees, all of that attack power focused on the ground, and he is at a disadvantage at this point. Now he's able to warp in a couple of people. Here I go and trying to supply block him a little bit. Okay, so this is getting close to a point where he just keeps pushing me out, which is excellent on his side. As long as those force fields are keeping me out, he can basically hold me off and continue to take advantage of his economic advantage. Now at this point, you can look and see that neither of us are really producing that much. Now he is bringing in 2 Void Rays, which is going to be the big game changer here. In fact, he's got them queued up, 1 there and 1 there, so he's got more than enough money to put into Void Rays. In fact, he could go ahead and warp in several units as well. So because I was so focused on trying to do this particular timing attack, because I had to try to finish this game, that's another reason why I didn't pull back. At this point I can pull back and count that as a fairly favorable engagement for me. But if you look at the since I know that he's expanded and I haven't expanded, he has such a huge economic advantage that I mean, honestly, if I can't push up that ramp at this point, I can just GG. So getting the game playing again, we can see myself loading up and bringing some Marauders in. Now it's an interesting choice what they're going to choose to attack, because attacking this forge is not that big of a deal. I mean, he wasn't really researching anything, it was powered. I also split my forces up into 2 different groups, which was a pretty big mistake, because these infantry units by themselves are not going to do very well against this group down here. And not only that, but this group I brought in here went straight into some cannons and got diminished. So I lost a Banshee and a Raven basically for nothing at that point. So thankfully I did save about 400 minerals worth of Marauders here, plus that medevac. But at this point I am severely behind in army supply and worker supply. Now I do have a bunch of minerals and gas lined up, and so if we go back to my base, you can see I'm building a couple things. Now one thing that was interesting, I did build a couple of these missile turrets. I wasn't even thinking about that they were important against the Void Rays. Otherwise I probably would have built a few more. I'm not even exactly sure why I built those, but I remember thinking, I was not specifically thinking about building those to help with the Void Rays. So here comes his attack force. We'll pull off the hit tap so we can see what's going on here. Looks like 4 Void Rays. Wow, quite a bit. But his ground force is fairly basic here. A couple of Immortals, a couple of Stalkers, a couple of Zealots. Enough to probably make it up this round. I think that's a reasonable expectation on his part. Now, I do have quite a few Marauders and a handful of Marines, not very much at all, but these 2 Banshees here. So I should be able to... I was actually very surprised that he was not able to completely push it by himself. So I'll be very interested to look at this particular battle and see what happened there. Okay, so he backs up out of the range of this. That's pretty good on his part. He wants to be able to keep me in the dark. He has a lot of units here. I mean, at this point, he really should be able to just do one single push in and end it. But I have been building barracks and, ironically enough, building Marines scattered throughout the base because not all the rally points are set. So the longer that he waits, it's actually in his favor as his army gets larger and larger, but he's just going to go ahead and push in, try to bring his stuff, got a couple of Zealots in the rear. So I'm going to slow down this battle to see exactly what happened here, because I was very surprised that I was able to hold this off. So they're trying to make it up the ramp. He does have visibility up to the top of the ramp because of the Void Rays. So these guys right here aren't actually getting attacked hardly at all, so they're getting kind of free hits on the units at the bottom. So he spent all this energy blowing up this bunker, and oh, he has a lot of units in the back that can't attack. Yeah, you can see this Immortal. He's not really able to contribute to this fight because he's in the back. And because of that, these 4 Marauders and a couple of Marines were able to do quite a bit of damage to this group in this upper right-hand corner, which leaves all of these other attacking units off to take out a couple of Immortals and a couple of Zealots. So, and then a bunch of these Marines coming in. So that's kind of the answer as to how I was able to hold that off, is that he was in kind of a choke point here where his units really couldn't contribute fully into the fight, and I did have reinforcements coming into the base at the same time. And you can see that our ability to multitask is, diminished in this case. We're not, building units at a quite constant rate, etc., and banking up a lot of resources. Now, and of course, his side, off those 2 bases, he has resources to spend. On my side, I had completely ran out of minerals. So now we're up to 4 Void Rays and just ground units here. Wow, just 5 Marauders and this SCV. So, yeah, that is definitely in game at that point. So I think I think that battle was very interesting. Both this ramp here and his ramp here, showcasing the Protoss ability to kind of wall off their ramps permanently with those sentries. Although that does require some micro to keep that up. And in this case, the power of those infantry units, I was actually quite surprised. I did have an 1 armor upgrade and stim, which I'm not sure if I used stim. I think I did stim my units at the top of this ramp, so that shows how powerful those infantry units are. And I mean, the fact that these Void Rays survived was purely that I didn't have a lot of anti-air, so I can see why this Protoss player, despite being much at an advantage earlier on in the game, you saw that he kept pulling his units back away from mine, back up to this ramp, and that was because he knew that in an open field fight, in the open field, his units were at a disadvantage against that large group of infantry units from the Terran players. So that's something that I will need to remember as I switch to Protoss in this upcoming season, that balls of infantry can cause quite a bit of trouble for a Protoss combination. Now, I don't think, yeah, these Zealots don't have charge researched yet. That's something that I will be looking to do in my games, is to research charge. I think charged Zealots are something that a lot of players have a hard time dealing with, because Zealots are just so strong, and their one weakness is that they're melee units and they have a slow speed, but the charge ability really makes up for that. So we'll be excited to see that in action. So an excellent game from Oblivion, and an excellent example, I think, of how in the upper leagues past bronze, you're really going to have to start expanding. When you're building up that first base, you should be thinking about how you're going to expand to your second, and then as you're getting this established, you're already thinking, well, where do I build my third? Because if you end up getting in a spot where even if you've expanded to your natural expansion and things are going well there, if you're not prepared to find that next expansion, that third expansion here or the third expansion here, your opponent will outlast you in the long run, and you may find yourself in trouble where you're in kind of this transitionary period where you don't have any money. And we should see some of that in future casts. But yes, an excellent finish to Season 5, and my last cast for Season 5, I will be doing a couple of blog posts kind of wrapping up the season, and then we'll be getting into Season 6. I had a couple of nice rematch games with Rays, who I played earlier in Season 5, so be looking forward to that coming up in the casting lineup. So GosuDad signing off, and we'll see you guys next time.